What's up guys, Camry David here for another race, this time at the MSR karting circuit. As you can see, it's pretty dark out. This is actually a night race, and it's actually part of a racing league. There are 30 people that participate in this event, but they don't have 30 karts, so they had to divide everyone up into 3 groups. This event does have a practice and qualifying, and which group you're in depends on your qualifying time. Even though I had the fastest time in practice, I ended up qualifying P4 in Group B because I had a kart that was knocking. So this first race is actually the Group B event then, and you can see ahead of me there are actually 3 Italians in P1, 2, and 3, and these guys were fast. The grid had a little bit of trouble trying to stay close to each other on the rolling start, and actually my side, someone bumped me from behind and kind of pushed us forward right at the start of the race. The first corner is pretty tricky, especially on cold tires, and is one of 2 braking zones on the track. The Italian in P2 actually goes wide on this corner and basically loses a lot of momentum, and I get by him pretty easily. If you look up ahead, you can see P1 actually developed a pretty sizable gap. It actually took me about the whole lap to catch up to this guy. By the time I got to turn 1, I made the same mistake the Italian did. I went wide and ended up losing a lot of time. So here I was back in the same position I was in the beginning of the race. I'll be the first to admit that I'm pretty inexperienced when it comes to karting. This is only my second race, so there were quite a few mistakes in this race. However, I knew I had the fastest time in practice, so as long as I could pull out that kind of pace, I knew that I could win this race. Fortune turned for me because on lap 3, P1 actually spun out in the first corner, so at this point, all 3 of us had made a mistake in that corner. Number 9 had a little bit of a gap, so I really had to put my head down and make sure I could catch up to him. A lap or 2 later, I had caught up to him at the end of the straight. He went wide on the dogleg, and it really killed his momentum. Over the next few corners, I really tried to focus on positioning my kart to be on the inside, and it worked because by the end of the lap, I was in P1. This was short-lived though, because by the time we got back to turn 1, he took a really ballsy and crazy move down the inside and ended up going way off track, and by the time he came back on track, I couldn't get around him. This led me to make the stupidest mistake of the race. As we were going into the S-turn, I was following him too closely. When I saw him start to go wide, I freaked out and put too much steering input, causing me to spin out. He ended up spinning out too, so that was a saving grace. But these karts are so slow from a stop that I was worried that we were going to get eaten up by the rest of the field. And lo and behold, P3 comes by and passes us right when we start to get back up to speed. I was able to catch up to him over the next few laps, and actually we had some pretty intense battles. But by the time we got back to turn 1, I made a move down the inside and just barely touched him a little bit, but I got by him and back into the lead of the race. Once I got some clean air, the rest of the race was pretty uneventful. I was able to develop a pretty sizable gap and take P1 for the first time. Now because I ended up finishing P1, I was able to advance to the back of the grid in the Group A race. My strategy going into this race was to avoid trouble on the first lap. I hung back expecting there to be some sort of conflict or scuffle into the first corner, and I was right, because when we got to the first corner, chaos ensued. There were karts everywhere, and I could barely see through the smoke. I don't know how I got through there, but I ended up going from P11 to P6. By the time I got to the last sector, I was able to collect another position to jump up to P5 by taking the inside. Coming down the front straight and into the first corner, I thought that I was well clear of him because I didn't see his light at all. All of a sudden, as I was in the braking zone, I saw a flash of light on the left side, and then I was hit from the back and completely lost control. I was kinda pissed off at this point too, and looked back and ended up hitting the barrier, and that took me out of the race. I was later told by a track marshal on that corner that he saw him tap me in the back to spin me around, and then proceeded to drive me into the barrier. I don't know if that was true, but I was happy to see that he got black flagged, because that was a move that was not going to happen from that far back. I will take some responsibility and say I could probably have controlled the kart better and not been so emotional to look back, and I think that distracted me and really caused me to go into the barrier as well. Regardless, I was really happy to get a P1 in Group B, and even though I had gotten taken out of Group A, I was happy to see that I can make big gains and be competitive at that top level. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you tune in next time for the next race that I have coming up.